We're needing to take during our COVID era, particularly the precautions in our in-person meeting today. We are limiting the seating capacity in the room severely. Our board members are separated by plexiglass panels. Staff has worked hard to make sure the room is set up with all the signage, with all the hand sanitizer and every other precaution that's available to us short of a medical team. If any of you in the audience happen to be doctors, we're going to take credit for also having a medical team, just so you know. Mr. Chairman, I think that we'll be set for a regular agenda today, but we'll be bringing in cases basically one at a time so that we do not have too many people in the room at any given time, as agreed upon with the health department, who oversees the use of this space for the purposes of this public meeting. With that, I believe we're ready to get started, sir.
Great, thank you. Lisa.
Good afternoon. The Metropolitan Board of Zoning Appeals is now in session for the regularly scheduled meeting of December 3rd, 2020. My name is Lisa Minton, and I will be presenting the cases to the board for their review in today's public hearing. We're convened here at the Sonny West Conference Room, located at 700 2nd Avenue South. For these public hearings, the board reviews the correspondence submitted in support of and opposition to these cases. The board also reviews correspondence and recommendations from other government agencies in preparation for the hearings. In today's hearing, staff will present the site plans, maps, photographs, and other documents that comprise the case record. At the conclusion of the staff presentation, the appellant will present his or her case to the board. After the appellant's presentation, if anyone here is wishing to speak in support of the appeal, they may do so. If any opposition is present, the board will then hear from those parties. After the opposition presents its testimony, the appellant will have a period for rebuttal. According to the BZA rules, the appellant has 5 minutes for presentation if no opposition is present. In contested cases, the BZA rules allow 10 minutes for each side to present their testimony. Should the appellant wish to provide rebuttal testimony, the appellant should reserve some portion of the allotted 10 minutes. At the conclusion of each hearing, the board will deliberate and then vote on that case. The board is vested by the power to act on these cases under the provisions of the Metro Zoning Code, Section 1740-180. All section numbers that we refer to come from the Metro Zoning Code, which applies to the entire jurisdiction of the metropolitan government. The zoning code was adopted by the Metro Council and became effective on January 1st, 1998. I will introduce the entire zoning code and make it part of today's record. The Metro Zoning Code requires a recording of these proceedings. Because BZA meetings are recorded for Metro Nashville Network, it is imperative that anyone addressing the board come forward to the podium and speak into the microphone. All speakers should identify themselves by name and address and then make the desired presentation. The Metro Code requires 4 members of our 7-member board to establish quorum. The code also requires at least 4 affirmative votes to grant an appeal. In the event that 5 or more members are present, but the appeal fails to receive 4 affirmative votes, the case will remain on the board's agenda for the next 30 days. Applications that fail to receive 4 affirmative votes within 30 days of the public hearing shall be deemed denied by operation of law. Pursuant to board rules, an aggrieved party may appeal board decisions to Chancery or Circuit Court within 60 days of the entry of the BZA order. Additionally, as per the BZA rules, an aggrieved party may file a motion for rehearing by the BZA within 60 days of the original hearing date. After that time elapses, the board's decision becomes final and no further action can be taken. If your appeal is granted, you're required to obtain the permit for which you applied. A permit must be obtained within 2 years for a board approval to remain valid. It should also be noted that if false or misleading testimony is presented to the board, any board approval could be revoked at a later date by means of a show cause hearing before the BZA. Mr. Chairman, I submit that all cases have been filed in proper order, all appellants have been notified by certified mail, and all legal notice requirements have been fulfilled.
Great, thank you.
We do have a few preliminary announcements regarding deferrals and withdrawals. Case 2020-233 for 6214 Henry Ford Drive has been withdrawn. And case 2020-242 located at 1009 Antioch Pike has administratively deferred indefinitely. Those 2 cases will not be heard today. For the members of the public, our board utilizes a consent agenda at each of its meetings. 1 board member reviews the record for each case prior to the hearing and identifies those cases which meet the criteria for the requested action by the appellant. If the reviewing board member determines the testimony in the case would not alter the material facts in any substantial way, then the case is recommended to the board for approval. We'll enter into the record those cases that have been so recommended, and if anyone is here in opposition to one of these cases identified for the consent agenda, we'll remove the case from the consent agenda and hear it in its regular order. Mr. Chairman, these are the cases that have been recommended for the consent agenda. Case 2020-212, located at 4022 Colorado Avenue. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 2020-212? Seeing none. The second case on consent agenda is case 2020-251, located at 912 21st Avenue North. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 2020-251? Seeing none. Mr. Chairman, staff would solicit a vote from the board at this time.
Okay, we have a motion for the consent agenda, and I know that we do have that Ms. Carpenter's going to abstain from one of those votes. Is that correct?
Case 251.
Okay, so we'll just, I'll have a motion for the case 212. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Raise your hand. Any opposed? That motion passes. And then we'll do a second motion for case 251 from Harry Medical College. Is there a second on that? Second. Have a motion, have a second. Any discussion? All in favor of that, say aye. Raise your hand. Any opposed? And one abstention. So those both pass.
Members of the public, if your case was just approved on the consent agenda, please give our staff until Monday to process all the documentation associated with your appeal, at which point you may come in to pursue those permits for which you have applied. Before we move on to the cases to be heard, we'd like to take this opportunity to recognize any elected officials who may be in attendance. Councilmember Parker and Councilmember Rosenberg, would either of you like to speak at this time? Okay, well then we will proceed with our cases. The first case to be considered will be case 2020-192, located at 0 Cub Creek Road. Is the appellant present for this case? Seeing none, the appellant is not present.
Can we do did we do a check outside to make sure that, I know that we'd asked some of the folks.
I did, Mr. Chairman, during the announcements.
Okay.
We'll send staff out to make a final check out of courtesy.
Okay, we'll make one more check and then ask the board to decide what you want to do with this. We can talk about those options once we get Jessica back to see if anybody is out there. All right, the appellant is not present. All right, so if the appellant's not present, typically there's a couple of choices. We can vote to deny their application because they didn't show, and we certainly have a whole lot of folks that did make the effort to show. Another option is to push it back a little bit on the agenda, and because of the number of folks that have come here, I might be willing to push it back one case to see if the appellant got stuck in traffic or whatnot, but that's up to this board. And the other option is just to defer it, which again, we've had it on the agenda, on the docket before, but sometimes we will defer it to another time. So I'm not sure what the pleasure of the board is, but those typically are the three options, and y'all may have something else you'd want to do.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to move that we deny it, and if they want to come back on a rehearing, that they can ask. But right now, this is second bite at the apple. We've got an awful lot of people that have been here, and this isn't the first time.
Okay.
You say this is the second bite of the apple. Have they deferred before, or is that what happened? Or do they not show?
Well, I think that it was an essential deferral. I think that they had talked about withdrawing the case, but then they didn't withdraw it, and then it just got on kind of an administrative deferral.
I think you've got it about right there, Mr. Chairman. This was set quite some time ago, deferred indefinitely at the request of the appellant on the day of the hearing, which is fine normally, and to kind of go back and rework some things. No new information, no new site plan, no new input from planning. And so at our last meeting, maybe 2 meetings ago, it was said again, this was deferred indefinitely. There was contemplation of withdrawal of the case, but we received nothing new from the appellant and no new communication from the appellant since that recent setting.
So the first time it was deferred, or did you say the first time it was withdrawn or deferred?
Deferred.
So did the opposition show up?
To my best recollection, yes, but that's been a while ago.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you because of the screens and
Yes, you had opposition present previously.
previously the opposition came in. And how you
That is my
said,
recollection.
Mr. Chairman, there were a lot of people here today. How do you know these
Well,
folks out here?
yeah, I think that, are there folks still outside, or are they?
Gotcha.
I stated incorrectly, it was an indefinite deferral. It was a specific deferral to 12/3, today's
Okay.
date. So
And
that's
are there
my
still folks
clarification.
for this case outside, or no?
Yes, there are opponents, so if you're going to hear it, we're going to bring in other folks.
So that we'd ask the folks that were kind of for and against this case to mostly leave for the presentation of the consent agenda. And if there's room for folks to come back and they can hear us have this discussion too, because especially if there are folks that have a stake in it, not that we're going to allow folks to speak.
I was waiting to see if it was going to be much of a discussion, Mr. Chairman, but certainly we're glad to go out and invite folks in to observe the deliberation.
Yeah, I mean, I think, to me, I think that should be part of they're the public that came to hear it, and let's let them hear what we're going to do with it. Because I think that we kind of promised that we would bring them back.
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, I was going to second the motion.
Okay, then we will accept that, and
That's the motion to just deny the application?
yeah.
Okay.
And we'll just hold off we'll hold the discussion until folks have a chance to come in, and then we'll announce it to the public that that's kind of where we are. Okay. All right, we're going to get back, now that we've had a chance for everybody to come in, just to catch up the people in the audience that have come in. We have made a call, and I'll make one final call, is the applicant, the appellant here for case 192. All right, seeing none, the applicant is not here. There's a motion from the board on the floor to deny the appeal, and that motion has been seconded. And we're waiting for the audience to come back so that they could hear the discussion on that motion. Is there discussion on that motion?
I have some discussion, which is I think it should be denied. However, we're only 15 minutes after 1 o'clock. My only concern is if the applicant is held up in traffic or something like that. So would you accept an amendment that if they're not here by the conclusion of the hearing on the next case or 2 o'clock, whichever if
we're going to do that, then let's just if you would table your motion, we would hear the next case, and then we would come back to your.
That'd be acceptable.
And then that way we don't have, we'll just say, let's hear the next case. As soon as the next case is up, it's probably 1:30, and
Then we'll just take the vote up.
And at that point, I think,
in
like I said,
time. Yeah, the only question I have then, because we brought all these people back in.
No,
are
I
we
think
gonna-
that
Are we going
everybody
to
can-
overload our
Yeah.
allotted numbers?
Yeah, there's still
good?
a
Thank
few
you.
chairs, and I think, and if they need to let us know, but as long as we have the folks for the next case, and then
Yeah.
the Cub Creek.
I'll keep staring at John Michael, and he'll clue me if I need to.
Okay, well, if that is acceptable, Ashanti, is that acceptable?
You good?
Okay, so then those motions are off the floor, there's no motion, and as chair, I will reorder the cases, which I think the board let me do a long time ago. Actually, David Ewing, but translated to me. And we will hear case 219, and after case 219, we will address case 192. All right, so if the appellant for,
I believe I'll go through the slides first, and I believe there is opposition present in this case.
okay,
So first, we'll go through the slides for case 2020-219. It's located at 338 East Trinity Lane. They're requesting a variance from the street setback requirements and also a special exception from the landscape buffer requirements. Here's the overview of the parcel map with an aerial view of the parcel. Proposed site plan and the alternative to the plan. Current conditions on the site. Street views. Confirming there is opposition here in present, okay. So there is opposition present, so the applicant will come forward, state your name, address, your case. Just understand that there will be a time for rebuttal after opposition.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dwayne Cuthbertson, 409 Merritt Avenue, representing the owner of this property. This is 338 Trinity Lane, and as you can see from that site plan, it's a pretty narrow corner lot along that Trinity Lane corridor. We are asking for a variance of that setback, and it's only along the Lishy Avenue street setback side. But we're also asking for a special exception of landscape buffers on the Lishy Avenue side and the south side of this property. The intent is to permit a 6-unit residential development as laid out in front of you. You've got 2 options on the site plan on the screen right now. This residential use is allowed by the zoning that's there right now. The property is zoned CS. It's a commercial zoning. It allows residential if the majority of its frontage is on a major street, which both Trinity and Lishy are major streets. CS zoning is somewhat of a relic of a zoning designation. It was created back in the 70s and reinforced back in the 90s as a pretty suburban type zoning requirement, typically with deeper setbacks. The uses that are allowed require a lot of parking. It's something that's more common in Bellevue, in Rivergate, and Antioch, and it's more applicable to really large, blocky lots that you find that are more common out in those areas. Unfortunately, in the 70s and 90s, it got applied to a lot of our urban corridors, and you still see a lot of that CS zoning applicable to these lots. You find a lot of it here on Trinity Lane. It was applied based on the uses, and there wasn't a lot of consideration given to the bulk requirements in those days, particularly as they apply to really narrow lots like this corner lot. One other thing to consider is that the CS zoning development standards are applicable to all the uses that are allowed in that zoning requirement. So in our case, the setbacks are applicable to the residential use that's permitted, the same as they might be permitted to a gas station or an office building. The landscape buffers are there to provide somewhat of a transition or soften the potential impact between uses. The same landscape buffer applies between, say, again, a gas station and residential as it would between residential and residential here. So we're proposing a residential use, which is a much lower intensity use on this property. This it's located in an urban corridor, in the urban context. And as most of you know, a lot of our urban corridors are being rezoned, and those corridors are being rezoned with A districts, if you will, more urban-oriented zoning districts. So on Trinity, for instance, if this corridor were rezoned, they'd look at the comprehensive plan, or the community plan in this case, and the community plan identifies it as an urban corridor, says you should have more urban standards. And that comprehensive plan would suggest that you use an A district. Well, if we rezoned it, we'd get that A district in all likelihood. And that A district would require us to build up to the street. It would say, no, you don't have deep setbacks, you actually have to build up to the street, and in this case, both streets. So the site plan that we're putting before you and asking for the variance and the exception for are to accomplish just that. We're looking to push this building up closer to Lishi Avenue so that we get a better orientation, so that we can locate the parking behind the building. That's a design, a layout orientation that's pretty desirable in most of our urban corridors today. And again, if we were to do this as an SP, in all likelihood, on this corridor and in many other urban corridors, we would be asked to push it up to the building and push our parking in the rear. So the setback on Lishi, the landscape buffers are the two minor elements of the zoning code that prevent us from doing just that. What you've got in front of you are two scenarios. The one on your left is the scenario we're looking to accomplish. We want to pull the buildings again up to Lishi Avenue and relegate all of our parking and access to the rear. If we have to build according to the CS standards, then we have to push that building back. There's no room to get the parking in the rear because this lot is uniquely narrow for that CS district. And so then we'd have to put the parking in the front. The site plan on that would be your right, shows the layout that would be permitted by right today. So again, our hope is to create something that's far more pedestrian friendly. It's a better urban design. It's a better experience for that corner. It's also a better transition. We're asking for shallow setbacks on Lishi. If you look across the street on the zoning maps, across Lishi Avenue, they've already been rezoned to an A district. So they've got a multifamily A district. They can't set their buildings back. They have to pull them up to the street, which is consistent with what we're asking for.
How far, what is that setback?
So it's not a setback, it's actually a build-to.
Well, what is it, the build-to, is it 5 feet?
0 to 15 feet.
0 feet, all right.
0 to 15 feet on both Trinity and Lishi for them. And then we've got an R6A district to the south of us, and if they were to redevelop, they also would have shallow setbacks along that Lishi. So really what we're asking for is very consistent with the development pattern that would eventually emerge. It's consistent with a lot of new development up and down Trinity, and even within the neighborhood. So
how far off the street off of Lishi will the actual buildings be?
it'll be 5 feet off the property line.
Right, but how far from the street?
That I don't have that measurement, but we are required to rebuild the sidewalks that are there and put a grass strip in between the sidewalk and the street. So,
but on your handout that you gave us, the dotted line that is kind of along it looks like your dotted line is along the sidewalk. So you've got at least the sidewalk and the grass strip between plus 5 feet from the street.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So the dotted line at the sidewalk is what you're considering the property line, and you'll be 5 feet back from that.
Correct.
Plus the sidewalk, plus the grass strip to the road. So you will be at least however wide your sidewalk and grass strip plus 5 feet.
The sidewalk, I think, has to be 6 feet there. I'm not sure because we didn't look at it. It's a major street, so it's got to be wider than the minimum, which is 5 feet normally. I'm guessing 6. It could be 8. I don't know.
And then the grass strip is what?
Minimum 4.
So you're saying it's a minimum of 10 feet plus 5. So you're saying based on this drawing, it should be 15 feet from the road.
From the curb, yeah.
Right. Okay. All right.
But the setback's always measured from the property line.
Right.
So
exactly.
That's what we're asking
exactly.
for.
But there are cases where sometimes people are concerned, and they think 5 feet is too close. We had one last meeting where they were still going to be 35 feet from the road or 30, whatever, some huge distance from the road, but it was a small setback because the right-of-way was so big. And I just wanted to understand, just for total perspective, what you are.
Sure.
But it sounds like you're 15 feet from the curb or 5 feet from the property line is what you're asking.
And I appreciate that clarification. We're really only asking for a 10-foot setback, and 10 feet is pretty minimal, but it is
10-foot variance.
a 10-foot variance, but it is the difference between putting parking in the front versus putting it in the rear. We did send out 2 rounds of notice on this one. Our first round, we advertised incorrectly. We advertised for 2 variances, and then it was determined that the landscape buffer is a special exception. So we had to do a whole new round of notices. We also had to hold a community meeting. We're holding those by Zoom just because we don't want to hold them in person. And I sent out an additional notice to everybody who would have received the BZA's notice, advertising that Zoom meeting, the date, the time, the links, but also provided them with all my contact information. So if they couldn't attend at that time, they could email me or call me. I heard from 3 folks from that notice, and everybody that I talked to based on that notice looked at the site plans we were proposing and said, why would you do the one with the parking in front? And you explain to them that, well, that's what the zoning requires, so that's why we're going to the BZA, and they were all pretty supportive and hopeful that we actually got the relief sought. We did have that community meeting. It was attended just by 1 person. That was it, and she's written a letter of support to you all. So we feel like we've got quite a bit of community support. The 1 person who did oppose it, we had emailed months ago, and I think he's here to speak in opposition to it. He may have had communication with others, but I didn't speak to anybody directly who questioned what we were trying to do. The uses are allowed by right. So the question for us is, do we put parking in the front or do we put parking in the rear?
And I guess the only last question is, for me, is that it appears to be, at least on, if these are at the same scale, that most of the units are the same. I think number 1 may be a little larger on the one you proposed, but it appears because of the way you would get the cars in the back, more than anything. But are they essentially the same? Are you gaining a lot of size, or is it?
I don't think so. Unit 1 would get a little bit bigger. They may be a little bit deeper with the parking in the rear. So I can't say that they wouldn't gain a little bit of size if we pushed them up.
Okay.
But I don't know that they wouldn't be the same.
Okay.
So another image that you have in your packet is a conceptual elevation. It shows what the buildings will look like between the 2 layouts. And again, if we have to put the parking in the front, on the ground floor, every facade will have a garage door. And we're trying to get away from that and make sure it's a front door that's on that front facade that presents to the public street. So we feel like, the unique circumstance comes down to this CS district and its applicability to an urban corridor. It's more of a suburban zoning that applies to these larger lots. And in the 70s, 90s, when these things were created, they didn't know what else to do but apply this CS district to even the smallest urban lots. And we haven't gotten around to comprehensively rezoning our urban core. We're still stuck with some of these relics, and so the only pathway is either rezone it or go to the BZA. And since we only have 2 small elements of relief, my client wanted to try the BZA first. We also did speak to the 2 abutting owners that would get the benefit, if you will, of the landscape buffer, and both of them have given us letters of approval for our relief from the landscape buffer. We are willing to submit to a condition that the plantings that would have otherwise happened in those landscape buffers, the schedule, the number of trees and shrubs, understory trees, we will still plant those on this site. You see the site plan in front of you. We are anticipating street tree plantings as well as plantings around the perimeter. So we'd still make those same number of plantings, just in different locations.
And we do have a letter from the planning department recommending approval of the landscape buffer.
So with that, I'll rest.
Any questions for the applicant?
Yes, I want to go back to something you all were discussing earlier, which was the property line along Lishy. You mentioned that you would be putting in a new green strip and new sidewalks.
There's a sidewalk there, but we'd have to improve it. We'd have to put a grass strip in there.
So does the sidewalk move back into the property because of that upgrade that's needed?
The way I'm looking at this, it looks like we will have to dedicate a little bit of right-of-way. I don't think they did that study. They wanted to wait to see what happened here before. Either way, they're going to have to dedicate. If they're going to have to improve the sidewalk, whether they get the variance or not here, they're going to build the multifamily. They will have to build that new sidewalk. So if it fits within the existing right-of-way, that's great. If they have to dedicate a foot or two to accommodate the wider sidewalk, they'll do that.
Okay, yeah, so I look at these things when a property owner has to dedicate right-of-way for a public improvement and they lose part of their property for that public improvement, that kind of factors into how I view the case. So that's why I was asking these questions.
Okay.
Any other questions at this time? Ms. Davis?
I was just wondering if the applicant knew the square footage of the lot.
It's, I do actually. It's 0.28 acres.
Okay, that's perfect, that's 0.28?
0.28.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, any other questions at this time? Anything else to add at this point?
No, sir.
All right, you'll have 2 minutes and 53 seconds for rebuttal, and we'll hear from the opposition.
So there's multiple people here in opposition?
All right, could I see a show of hands of who is in opposition for this case?
We're just trying to figure out what's going on, so that's.
Okay. If you, the opposition has a total of 10 minutes, and so keep that in mind. And see, I think you have at least one other person that wants to speak, or may not want to speak, but is here. Sir, if you would press the button to turn the red light on. Just, yeah, there you go. And then state your name and address, and then your opposition to this case.
Good afternoon. My name is Gordon Stacy Harmon. I reside at 1826 Joyce Circle, which is a little less than a half a mile from this location. I'm also the chairperson of the Highland Heights Neighborhood Association. I really only have one opposition to this particular case, and that's the request for the variance for the setback. I don't see a hardship in this particular situation. The applicant and the property owner want to build 6 units. They can build 6 units. They can still achieve their objective without having to have a variance. If they want the residential setbacks, they should rezone this property. All sorts of residential zoning districts are permissible under the Highland Heights study and the resulting revised policies that we have in place. I don't understand why this is a request for a variance. Variance should be a hardship case. They have no hardship case that I can see. In fact, the applicant just a moment ago said BZA was their first try. So they have an avenue to achieve what they want to achieve, but they don't want to go through that process because this would be easier. I, again, don't see that as a hardship. So my understanding of the way the BZA works, an approval is granted if there's truly a hardship. I don't see the hardship here. Now, as far as the setback goes, I use that intersection daily, sometimes several times daily. We've got a lot more construction going on further up Lishy. There's 150 units going in about 2 blocks from this particular intersection. Usage of that intersection is going to increase dramatically over the next couple of years. If we have a 2, 3, 4-story building, however many stories they're planning to build, 5 foot off of there, that's going to greatly hamper visibility for those that are sitting further back in the line at that intersection. Also, if you take a look, this doesn't necessarily come into play with the variance, but at the bottom, they're proposing an alley that actually cuts off access to the community market, which is the lot immediately to the west of this location. That lot access has been used for a number of years and actually helps reduce the traffic at that intersection, because if people have to now stay in line at that intersection to turn left to go to community market instead of being able to enjoy the pass-through that they have currently in play that you can see on an aerial, that's going to create more problems. I don't like the setback. I don't think it should be granted simply because I don't see the hardship in this particular situation. If you see the cut through there off of community market, they would actually build over that entire community market area and have part of the alleyway constructed. I really think this needs to be a rezoning application and not a BZA variance. And I yield my time.
Well, I have a couple
yes, sir.
of questions.
Sorry.
Because I guess, you know, the cut-through piece, I don't understand. I mean, I see what you're saying, but it seems like the alley would either take you to the community market or not, but if it's on the person's property, I'm not sure I understand
well, it's
what relief.
It's a sideline complaint,
Yeah.
honestly, because the alleyway that's going to be constructed would be fine for pedestrian, but it does not have a way for vehicular traffic to get into the community market like it does now.
Right. Well,
And-
it's for vehicular traffic to get to this project, and if the community market wanted to connect to that alley, unless their building's
Well,
right
but
there.
if you take a look, don't mean to interrupt, but if you take a look at the property line, the alley's only be built back as far as their property is wide. So once you've completed, and if you want to go back to the drawings, once you've completed that, if you'll notice, there's landscape buffers where that drive currently is. Again, that's
Right.
That's germane to my particular objection.
Fine, okay, so I won't get caught up on that, and I appreciate it. I just want to understand just where that cut-through was and what part was on this person's property and what was on, you know, it was not. The other question I have is about the rezoning, and people do come to this board and ask for this type of variance and have been successful and some not, depending upon the neighborhood and the context, to basically say, look, the lot across the street is zoned, well, I think he said A, and I'm not sure what zone that is, but basically it's a build to where he could do exactly what he wants to do. And you're suggesting that he go through the rezoning process, and as a neighborhood president, would you have some thought as to what zone anyone who wanted to rezone that block would be successful achieving?
There's a significant difference between going through the rezoning process and this.
That's not my question. I'm asking,
I'm sorry.
my specific question to you is, if he were to go through the rezoning process, as the neighborhood president, what would you all support that area be rezoned as, or would you oppose it for any rezoning?
No, so not for any rezoning. He can, under the policies, build up to, I think it's an RM20A, but we would insist on no short-term rentals. And I have, well, I have no proof. The general thought is that these would be short-term rental units. We've got plenty of those in our neighborhood, and when you're talking about units that can house a number of individuals for only part of the week at different times of the year, it just doesn't fit in with our neighborhood.
And so if this were, let's say, if this were to be built as is, and again, I understand the sightline issue. I'm trying to struggle with the 5 foot versus 15 feet off the road, and is that enough? And the site, and what I see now is distance from East Trinity, or from Trinity Lane, that looks far enough to have at least a full car length, if this is truly to scale, where the white line is, that you'd have to stop at on Lishy, that you're a full car length. If that's where you are, you will see everything coming because of the setback from Trinity Lane. And so I appreciate it, and I'm concerned about it, but I'm also thinking, well, this may be okay. But what I'm really trying to get at is if they could rezone it and do this, this isn't an inappropriate thing that this board has done, but what we can do is put conditions, and no short-term rentals could be a condition of granting a variance. Would your neighborhood association be more amenable to this project
Possibly.
as proposed if there were no short-term rentals as a condition?
Possibly, because we can't stop them constructing 6 units on this property.
Well, and what we're trying to do
The
sometimes.
question's the setback.
And what they ask us to do sometimes is to say, well, what's the lesser of two evils? Here's what we can do by right, but the planning department would really prefer us to be more pedestrian friendly and have your front door on the sidewalk instead of your driveway on the sidewalk. And, that's what we're proposing. And if we rezoned it, that's probably what we do. And, that's their pitch. But if the real issues, short-term rentals, then that's something that also I think the board could address.
Well, there are really 2 issues, one being the setback and the visibility at that intersection,
Right.
and also the short-term rental aspect. But again, it's pedestrian friendly as it is. There's an existing sidewalk that wraps all the way around that corner. It's actually quite wide. In fact, there's grass to the on the property side already.
Okay.
So installing a grass strip, it looks pretty, but it's very pedestrian friendly as it is. Providing the alleyway and a footpath to get over to the community market would be pedestrian friendly, but we have that now. So I don't, when it comes down to the pedestrian friendly argument, I don't see where this is a huge improvement over over what's existing.
Okay, thank you.
Cool.
Any other questions from the board? Sir, did you have anything else to add at this point?
No, I
All
yield my
right,
time.
thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. Well, good afternoon, board members. Thank you all for being here today. I think that a lot of the concerns that I've heard from neighbors were covered by Stacy, the previous speaker, the president or the chair of the Highland Heights Neighborhood Association.
And for the record, would you remind everybody your name and address?
Oh, yes, thank you. Sean Parker, council member for District 5. I live at 108 Manette Court.
Thank you.
I live fairly close to this site. I probably go to the community market 3 or 4 times a week. And this area is, sort of effectively a neighborhood center. I forget exactly what it's designated in the Highland Heights plan, but there's a lot of activity there. People come from off of Trinity Lane. People come from the neighborhood up to the community market, and they're not going anywhere. I mean, they've just invested in new pumps for their gasoline, which is super exciting for them. We'll be able to use our credit cards outside instead of having to go in with cash. When I first saw this, I was, just kind of frankly surprised that they would go for this particular use at this spot, the row of residential houses, and it just seems incongruous with the adjacent uses. And I understand that they can do this by right, and that I understand that. But the community market is sort of this deep setback convenience store with gasoline pumps out front, and this is just very incongruous with that. And the setback issue, I'm trying to visualize what that sight line, if you're heading north on Lishi and making a left or right on East Trinity, trying to visualize exactly what that sight line looks like, and it's I do have a little bit of concern about the proposed, how tight the corner of Unit 1 is into the intersection. There's a slight grade to the west of this site that already constrains sight lines a bit, and it's tough for me to visualize the impact of that corner of Unit 1 being in that tight. So that gives me a little bit of concern as well. So I think that also just the process considerations that the previous speaker brought up, I think that there's a number of zoning districts which would be appropriate here. and I'd be happy to work with the applicant on rezoning the property if that's the route that they decide to go eventually. So I just wanted to, I would ask the board to deny this today due to the sightline consideration, as well as just I think that fitting in this sort of high-density residential use via a variance at this particular spot, given the surrounding context, is not appropriate.
So I guess the question I have is, and I know you just requested that we deny this or defer it to have something worked out, and I definitely understand, because you all live in the district, the concerns about the sight lines, and does that mean taking a look at number one again to see if that's something that's possible to set back, that unit to create a better sight line, but to have a more thorough discussion with you, and I definitely think that that's something that that should happen if this plan should go forward. But I guess the real question is, if the applicant has to do that, or has the right, can do this by right, build 6 units, is there a preference versus, where that driveway goes? And planning almost always says, the one on the left is preferable because it's like a townhouse, and, you walk down the sidewalk, you walk to somebody's, front door, and that's why they call it more pedestrian friendly. And I'm not an urban planner, so those are always the words that they give to us. And so, to me, if the one on the left is preferable to the one on the right, then I think it's worth, deferral to really work out some of those concerns about, are there alley access that would benefit the neighborhood? Is there a different shape to number one that would give more sight line to make it, or does it just need to go through the rezoning process? And that's where, I'm having a trouble with. What I think would be a shame is to say, well, let's just deny it today, and they build the one on the right by right, and everybody says, well, that's not what we really wanted, Yeah. So I guess the question to you is, as the council member, is do you have a thought on the best path to try to get to an answer that is at least satisfactory to you and the neighborhood, and yet is one that you conceive that the applicant would be amenable to?
Well, the applicant did express that it sounds like the next step for them would be to rezone the property rather than to build the design that they consider less preferable. They said this was sort of their first bite at the apple here. And so, I mean, I think that would be a satisfactory outcome that would result from a deferral. I guess the applicant can speak to that, or the appellant can speak to that in their rebuttal period. Another thing that I understand that generally, and I'm generally in favor of moving frontages toward the sidewalk. However, the built environment around this site is not like that. And I have, obviously we want to shift toward that in a lot of cases, but for example, this area is not in the UZO. You're not seeing this, in the area. And so that's what gives me a little bit of pause of saying, well, that should be our ultimate goal here with our decision today, is to sort of push that ball down the road. And I think that, again, I'm open to of course, whatever the board decides today. And again, I'm happy to work with the property owner and the applicant on a rezoning for this property as well. So I will just, if anyone has any more questions for me, I'm happy to.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
So you mentioned sight lines and maybe left turns being a possible issue here. Is there any, do you know if there are any long-term plans to widen this street? Because looks like it's just 2 lanes right now. Is there a plan to put a turn lane at some point where that property line might get closer to the road?
Oh, you mean Lishy?
Or the road might get closer to the property line, actually, on Lishy?
I don't know of any plans to widen Lishy.
Okay. Okay.
No.
Christina?
Is your hope with the potential rezoning to have a different use on the site?
Well, I mean, it's pretty clear that the applicants are looking to do residential. So even though it seems like an odd fit for me, I'd be happy to work on a district that would still allow them to build residential units.
Okay, so if the site was rezoned, potentially it still may be residential use there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Any other questions for the councilman?
So, Councilman, some of it's because of the mask, and I can't hear well sometimes. But I think I understood you to state a preference for this, based on what you know now, this to go through the rezoning process as opposed to being here. Is that
Yes,
what
sir.
I understand your preference to be?
That would be my preference.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions at this time? All right, we will, was there anybody else in opposition that wanted to speak? And Councilman, you are welcome to speak after the applicant. The council, as a councilman, you can speak pretty much any time you choose.
Thank you.
And we welcome that. So feel free, if you'd like to say something to close, feel free to use that privilege and
Thank you.
as the representative of your district. All right, we'll hear back from the applicant.
All right, there are a couple things to address. First off, the whole sightline and access issue. We're not asking to move the buildings any closer to Trinity Lane than the current zoning allows. It'll still be 15 feet back from Trinity Lane. So whatever sightline might be impacted, it shouldn't be any more than a new building using the current zoning would impact it. We're asking to use the A district standards, and this land use policy, the community plan that, I was involved in the Highland Heights neighborhood plan as well as Stacy and Councilmember Parker. There was it took a lot of back and forth, and we ultimately got to a place where we did want urban on this corridor. It's a very haphazard, sloppy suburban pattern up and down this part of Trinity. And I think the consensus was we want it to be a lot more organized. We ultimately want a place that's a destination where people can actually walk to and along. So the use of the A district is something that is at least one of the tools that gets us there. And what we're proposing today, we feel like, is consistent with the vision that was a result of that consensus. There are, the whole block to the west was rezoned using an A district. To the east. The entire block was rezoned as an A district. While it's single-family houses right now, as it redevelops, new buildings, they don't have a question. They don't, it's not a, should I build up to the street? It's a, you have to build up to the street to give us that relationship. And then access to the gas station, we're providing a public alley. If that gas station wants and needs vehicular access in that rear, they have every right to extend our alley so that it runs behind their gas station, and then they can bring the driveway up to that alley. It was the gas station owner who sold this property to my client. So there was obvious acknowledgement that this cut-through would go away. So when it comes to rezoning it, I just interacted with my client over the phone, and no, he's not going to rezone it. He's going to either build what the zoning allows or build something that he feels like is a lot more consistent with the community plan. Puts that parking in the rear, gives us a better experience along Lishy Avenue. Rezoning will take 4 months, 5 months at minimum to go through. And then you have to start your engineering, and then you have to start your permitting. So he's already put himself 3 months behind just going through the variance process. I don't think he wants to endure another 5-6 months just to maybe get a zoning change. And it sounds like Councilmember Parker would certainly work with him, but I mean, there's still uncertainty in that process. We are only asking for minor variances. We're not asking to change the uses. We're not asking for different bulk regulations or development outcome significantly different from what the current zoning allows. We're asking to deviate from 2 very specific elements of the code so that we can get better urban design that's consistent with the vision that everybody's kind of expressed.
Would you be amenable at all to, I mean, I see that, I hear the opposition saying that sightlines are an issue, things like that. Would you be amenable to stepping the first, unit back some to allow for better sightlines or anything like that? Is that something that,
I thought about that as they were talking about that. Would it help to bring unit back 5 feet? It might. That'd be one of those commitments that I'd make without consulting him.
Right.
It's with the variance, unit 1's pretty deep. I'll go out on a limb and say I don't think 5-foot step back is going to kill that unit. So I think that's something he can live with. So that will help the sightlines, certainly for those coming out. Sure, I think we can commit to that.
Any other questions?
I just want to be clear on, you mentioned the property to the east quite a bit. Is what we're seeing here on the screen what is built today?
It is. However, I'd say that house is gone. So that property, the house has been demolished. It's RM15-A, so 3 units can go back there by right, if I remember my math correctly. And they don't have a choice. They have to build up to Trinity. They have to build up to Lachey.
Any other questions? And one of the things that as I look at it, and again, I may fall for the lesser of 2 evils argument. It's always presented, and it doesn't mean that the greater evil is going to always be always going to happen. But at least the 2 options are compelling, and I do think the one on the left, the one that you present, is preferable in an urban setting, and I think this is that, although I know it's not the UZO. And I do think that the fact that the neighbor who sold the land, he gave up his access, and he can address that and work with you on that, and I think have access through the alley. But also, in cases like this where you're asking us to essentially say, well, let's pretend like it's the lot across the street, where we could do it. Those are compelling to me when the council member comes and supports it. And the fact that the council member came and is asking us not to do it says that I would prefer, at least some more discussion with the council member. And I do like the idea, to me, the compelling argument, and again, I don't know how everybody else feels, and I may be the only one, but to me, stepping back that first unit to improve sightlines is I think, a really good compromise to address the major concern, because as you said, the placement of it is within the setback, except for that 15 feet on that corner, that extra 10 feet on that corner, and that may be something that could be worked with. And then just see, like I said, if you're able to reconcile some of those differences with the council member, then I think it's a much easier ask for me personally, just because, like I said, planning has come out and supported, and the variance on the landscape buffer, but as part of their variance, they talk about the alley access and the pedestrian aspect of the project. They don't weigh in on it, but they certainly acknowledge that as part of their recommendation to approve the landscape buffer. So
Chairman Taylor, can I go ahead and just volunteer to defer this one meeting? The worst case that happens is we come back to you and say my client is not willing to budge, but at the very least we can try to talk with a council member.
That would be preferable to me, because I always like these when they come with agreement.
Yeah.
And I do think the sightline issue is substantive.
I just want to make one particular comment, and that is, you've got, at least in one member's of this body's mind, a compelling argument by the member of the council, and I haven't heard that there's been, if we defer it, during that deferral period, maybe some intense discussions with the council member. You're pretty convincing individual. I think if you can convince your client and convince the council member and the homeowners association or the group over there, it'd sure go a whole lot farther, at least with me, because right now, I think you know which way I was headed.
I understand.
So are there any other questions for the applicant?
Make a motion to defer.
So the motion would be to defer one meeting, and Councilmember Parker, is that acceptable? Okay. And then we'll defer it one meeting. Is there a second? And then that motion was seconded. And know that if more time is needed, then that can be done administratively, just at the request of the applicant. Any discussion on the motion? Okay. And I didn't close the public hearing, but we will, since it was offered by the applicant, then I don't know that I necessarily needed to do that, but we will close the public hearing to have a vote on that motion. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Raise your hand. Any opposed? All right, so if you all meet with the councilman and neighborhood, and we will see you in 2 weeks. All right, thank y'all. And now we go back to case 192 and ask if the appellant is present. All right.
Mr. Chairman, I renew my motion.
All right, there's a motion to deny the special exception on case 192. And Mrs. Davis, was that a second? You seconded that the first time. Is that you renew, not to push you to renew your second, but
Yes, I renewed
take
my
us back to
second.
where you were at 1 o'clock. Okay, and any discussion on that motion? I think given the situation, the council members opposed to it, planning department's opposed to it, as many neighbors as we've had opposed to a special exception have written in and are present, which I think definitely speaks to the community impact aspect of a special exception. And frankly, when I reviewed their site plan, I don't think that they can meet the landscape buffers required for a campground or a camp, based on my uneducated review of it. Where their parking is, they can't have a landscape buffer. They have to redo their site plan if it were to be even approved at all. So I think it's totally appropriate to deny this request. Any other thoughts from folks? Okay, all in favor of that motion, say aye, raise your hand. Any opposed? Then that request is denied. All right, next case, and I appreciate everybody being patient with us.
Yeah,
We normally just give everybody, just for the benefit of the doubt, and we do the same thing for anybody on this. It's what we've done, but I appreciate y'all waiting it out for us and being here today. All right, next case.
Next case is case 2020-248, located at 313 Lawndale Drive. And they're requesting a front setback variance from the 90-foot required setback to a 56.6-foot front setback within the RS-15 district to construct a front porch. I believe this project was started without permits. Here's the actual location of the site. There's the aerial. There's the site plan showing the house with the porch that was under construction on the front portion. Street view of the subject property.
Is there anybody here in opposition to this case? All right, seeing none.
Seeing none. The applicant would state their name and address.
Yeah, and ma'am, if you will just press the button, make sure the red light's on, other button. There you go.
Her name is Teresa Flores, and address is 313 Lawndale Drive, Nashville, Tennessee, 37217.
All right, and tell us what you're asking for.
Okay, so basically she built a front porch on her house, and she had no idea that she needed to get a permit for it.
I'm sorry, and tell me who she is. Is this?
It's just Teresa Flores, that's my mom. She doesn't
Okay,
speak
your mom.
English.
Okay. So your mom built a porch.
Yes, and then she received a notice that she needed to get a permit, and we've been back and forth to courts until they told us that we needed an appeal because of I believe it's the setbacks. We needed to apply for a variance. But yeah, she had no clue that she needed a permit. So that was the main issue.
Okay. And can we go back to the picture of the porch? So this is the porch that was built?
Yes, sir.
And is it meant to be a screen porch or open air? It's not meant to be enclosed or what?
Yeah, it was just open air.
Okay. Do you have any idea how let's see, did you all submit a site plan? I don't. Okay. Well, and then, do you know, I don't know if you can, on this site plan, there's a line that goes from the corner to your property line, and that's 56 feet. And at the other corner, I'm assuming it looks to be further. And then, do you see the dotted line at your property line? What I guess I'm trying to figure out now is how far is it from your property line to the road?
I have no idea. Sorry.
Okay. Maybe I might ask when I put my architects on the spot to see if they can guesstimate that, but
Hey,
I mean, it looks to be at least, it looks to be 20 feet-ish.
Based on the site plan that I'm looking at, it looks like around 72 feet from the road.
Okay. And did you have anything else to
No.
add?
Mm-mm.
Are there questions? And you do have your lot isn't a square, it's a strange shaped lot, it is on a curve. And you do have a fairly substantial right-of-way between your property line and the street. Is there anything else that?
David, I think you said that you had been to court?
Yes.
Okay, would you sort of fill me in what happened there?
Yeah, we went to court because they needed the permit. So every time we went, we didn't have it with us. So that's when they told us that we needed to schedule a hearing because they told me they couldn't give me a permit because of the variance. It was not correct.
Okay, so there was no judicial determination of any,
no.
okay.
Yeah, they keep rescheduling until we have the permit.
Okay.
And
Thank
what
you.
is the court?
That's an environmental court proceeding, and it's a pretty common practice for the referee to wait and see if there can be an administrative approval through the BZA so they can get to a resolution without having to take formal court action. That's pretty standard for them.
Yeah, I think that sounds like Renard Hirsch to me.
Okay. So that's not relevant to us today, really. That's just if we didn't give them a variance, then they would have to the court would have to. Okay. Any other questions?
Sure, can you remind me, was opposition here?
Yeah, there was no opposition.
No opposition?
Still no opposition? No.
Okay. And can you remind me, did you tell us what your neighbors have said about the porch?
Well, So far, they loved it. We have several neighbors telling us that it looks really nice, that that they liked it. We haven't had anybody complain about it. So,
How long has the porch been there?
a year.
Okay.
It's been there for 1 year.
Any other questions? Did you have anything else to add?
No, sir.
Okay, then we will close the public hearing.
So, Chairman, you sort of pointed out some of the things about the lot that make it sort of unique and irregular, the shape of it, the deep right-of-way. And it seems like the house is sort of not placed, I guess because it's a corner lot, the house isn't even necessarily placed in the center of the lot. I'm going to ask the architects, but it doesn't even look like it's centered to the lot. So I think there's an argument for the hardship, and there's not any opposition. So I'm willing either to make a motion or support a motion. I was going to lean into the expertise of our architects, but if they're okay with what I just said, I would make that a motion. Okay, good, thank you.
I'm seconded.
I would make a motion based on the hardships that I described, that we grant the variance and they
then
get their permit.
would you accept an amendment that the porch not be enclosed, that it could be screened but not enclosed?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second on a variance, setback variance for the front porch, provided that it not be enclosed, but it may be screened. Is there any discussion?
I'm just going to clarify that you mean that the porch should never be turned into a room that's conditioned.
That's right. The porch can never have walls and windows and
Yeah.
air-conditioned space. It just, it can be screened, but not
Okay.
become part of the house without coming back and asking for permission.
Correct.
And that motion has a second. And any other discussion or clarification? Okay, all in favor of that motion, say aye. Raise your hand. Any opposed? That motion passes. And congratulations and good luck. Enjoy your porch.
Thank you, appreciate it.
All right, next case.
The next case is case 2020-250, located at 212 Craighead Avenue. Is there anyone here in opposition to this case? Seeing none, I will proceed with the slides, and then the
All
appellant
right.
can state their
And
case.
Lisa, before we go, I'm going to step aside. Have a connection to the architect, and so I will turn this over to Chairman Pepper.
Hello, if you will state your name, and if you'll turn the microphone where you see the little red light, there you go. Thank you.
Chairman, I'll state the case and show the slides, and then we'll let the appellant speak on her behalf, if that's all right.
Pardon me?
I will go through the slide presentation and then let the appellant speak.
Okay, you're gonna do the slides first, right? Okay.
Here's an overview of the R8 zone parcel. There's an aerial view. Here's the proposed site. They're requesting variances from the setbacks and the footprint allowable to convert the existing garage with a proposed addition into a detached accessory dwelling unit. They're requesting a variance from the 5-foot side setback on the one end to use the existing, I believe it's 10 and 5/8 inch existing structure setback. And the existing rear setback is 13 feet 8 inches on that structure also versus the 20-foot required. The other thing they're asking for is a variance from the allowable 1,000 square foot footprint for this structure. The actual footprint they're requesting is 1,335 feet. Here's the proposed plans for the structure. There's an elevation. Here's the subject property. Street views. The appellant may now state your name, address, and state your case.
Hi there, my name is Catherine Sigarian. I'm at 212 Craighead Avenue. We've owned the property since 2002, and we are trying to essentially take our garage apartment and convert it into a more user-friendly space for us that includes a covered open-air patio. We, as you can see, the existing building is 785 square feet. We're actually taking part of the square footage and making it a true bay for a car. a small area for essentially the pool house and then the covered porch. The existing garage apartment has been there for as long as we are aware. We bought the property in 2002. It looks quite old. I don't know how old it is. The existing structure, we're actually shrinking it down to, as far as heated area goes, is about 400. I just want to be sure that I don't misquote it. But anyways, because of that covered porch, that takes the 785 square feet to 1,300 square feet. And then, so we're 300 square feet over the allowable 1,000 square feet. So it exists, it's been existing. We would like to keep it in the same spot. We're going to try to renovate it. We think it's the easiest option for our neighbors. We've reached out to all of our neighbors. We've gotten 2 letters of support. We have a letter of support from our council member. We think you won't see it from the front, so it's very compact. We think it's the best use of the land, and that's sort of where we are.
Okay, thank you. Board members, any questions? I think I pretty much understand this one, but.
Yeah, we read in the board
Can
packet
you
the
speak
letter.
into your microphone more, because I'm having a hard time.
Oh, sure,
Yeah.
yeah. We read a letter of opposition which mentions the roof might be raised. Is that correct?
Yes, and that's not part of the variance. The variance is to stay within where the structure actually is. And
So it will happen, but it's not part of the variance, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay, but it will happen.
It is structural. I'm not an engineer, but once you widen it just that little bit, it goes up a little bit. But it doesn't take it to a 2-story. It's still a single-story building.
Is the pitch going to match that of the main house of the roofs there?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, ma'am, thank you. As I understand, there's no opposition here, but there was an opposition letter, I think. We talked about that. Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Thank you. Discussion, anybody?
I mean, it looks like the existing structure is already within the setback, so I think that's a reasonable hardship that in itself is that there's an existing structure, and I mean the very minimal addition of conditioned space to the existing structure, and or even enclosed space. The enclosed space of this area would be still less than 1,000 square feet. It's just like opening a porch. So, and I also, I also said something about keeping the open space on the side of their property, which I think that's admirable for the neighborhood. So I don't have any issue with it.
If you make that a motion, I would support it unless anybody else had something.
We'll make that a motion.
Okay, there's a motion to approve the application. Is there a second? And then we'll move to discussion.
I'm going to second.
Seconded, okay. So now discussion, Mr. Laws, I think you've got something.
The only thing is in that open area that it not be enclosed at some point, would that be an acceptable?
Will you accept that amendment?
Yes, I will.
Okay. Do you understand that amendment, ma'am?
I understand that it will be not enclosed.
It's consistent with what we've been doing today, too.
Okay, so the motion is to approve the application, provided that the proposed covered porch not ever have walls put on it. It can be screened in, but no walls, correct? Okay. Okay, any further discussion on that? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay. Congratulations, it passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
All right. Quickman, who put you in charge of?
The next two cases are short-term rental cases. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 2020-213 at 1053 Scoville Street? Seeing none, I'll proceed with introducing the case. Case 2020-213, located at 1053 Scoville Street, is an item A appeal challenging the zoning administrator's denial of a short-term rental permit. The appellant operated after the issued short-term rental permit expired within the SP district. Mr. McBroom is here from the short-term rental staff and on behalf of codes, and he'll make a presentation. Is the applicant present for this case? Yes, he is. After Mr. McBroom speaks, you will have 5 minutes to state your case. State your name and address when Mr. McBroom is done introducing the case.
Good afternoon, Board. This is an expired permit in an SP zone. On May 17th, 2018, STRP application planning review of SP uses concluded approval of owner-occupied STRP permits only. June 1st, 2018, the owner-occupied STRP permit was issued and permitted for 3 bedrooms and 10 occupants. On May 17th of 2019, the permit was renewed. On October 18th, 2019, hotline complaint for advertising excess occupancy. The ad read 14 occupants. Notice of violation sent by Inspector John Feltz for excess occupancy and no permit number in the website ad. October 28th, 2019, the ad was corrected in the remedial time period allotted, and the case was closed. On April 13th of 2020, hotline complaint for advertising excess occupancy. Notice of violation was sent again by Inspector John Feltz for simultaneous rental to separate parties on separate contracts. On May 14th of 2020, the advertisement was corrected again within the remedial time period allotted, and the case was closed. On June 1st, 2020, the permit expired. On July the 20th of 2020, the permit renewal documentation was received by the zoning department, which was 19 days after the 30-day grace period ended. The renewal was denied. On July 27th, 2020, a cancellation letter was sent, renewal documentation and payment returned. On October 30th of 2020, the advertisements were removed. September the 4th, 2020, the BZA appeal was filed. 3 documented stays in August 2020. After the permit expired on June 1st, 2020, there were 2 hotline complaints previously mentioned, both for excess occupancy. 1 advertisement remains posted, which is for monthly rental.
Any questions for Mr. McBroom? Okay.
Thank you. My name is Grover Collins with Collins Legal at 414 Union Street, Suite 1110, Nashville, Tennessee 37219, on behalf of Mr. Rogers. Hopefully everybody received the packet and the appeal petition that we got in your board review packet. This is simply a case where my client simply failed to renew within the allotted time, and more importantly, within the 30-day grace period. As soon as they were alerted or realized that they had made the mistake, they came in to try and make the reapplication. It's important to note, and we put this in our appeal, that Mr. Frobit denied that appeal because there had been these documented stays. My client was unaware that when it expired, he had to go ahead and cancel that. That's why we included those cancellations in the packet as an exhibit at the end there. As soon as they were made aware of that, they went ahead and canceled any and all reservations that were outstanding. It's important to note also that was prior to me getting involved and me informing them on what exactly they had to do. And I think it's kind of somewhat unclear as to if you've got a contract that was agreed to when you did have a valid permit, as to whether or not that permit, you can go ahead and enforce that. As far as there still being a listing for 30 days, I don't think that's a violation of any Metro code whatsoever. You can rent anything for 30 days or more, and that's not considered a short-term rental. We're simply asking for the ability to go ahead and reapply for this. He's still eligible for this, and we think that he should be given that right. I will address, there were some letters in opposition, I think, in your packet, if y'all had a chance to read those. The reason we deferred this the first time is I wanted to investigate those issues or those complaints. Upon further investigation, I've found out that the source of those complaints is likely coming from one individual who had a portion of ownership in this house at one time, and that was a breakup of the house that has happened, and then it appears, and we filed suit based on this in circuit court this last week, that person is seeking to keep my client, Mr. Rogers, from being able to rent his property because he also has a short-term rental in that area.
Now, did that person submit a letter?
Yes, there are letters that were submitted, and I tried to get the packet for today, but I don't have it. There's an Elizabeth Sierra. There was another letter or two.
Well, we've got one from Avram Rosenbaum, Blake Fusion, Claudia Padfield, Elizabeth Sierra, and Gideon Richardson. Those
So
are all
Elizabeth Sierra and the Abram are both, it is believed to be that they are the same person, and there was one other one that's in the source of our litigation, but there was there was actually an agreement that came into place where some monies were exchanged, and there was a settlement agreement, and there was a non-disclosure agreement, and also a basically can't speak bad or say anything about any property, and it looks like there's still some ill will between my client and that person. My client was unaware of it, but apparently, and it appears from what our investigation is and what we've alleged that those letters are coming from the same person, although they've put other addresses and that kind of thing. That's our belief. I don't obviously.
So now, it said it was owned the property was owned at one point by two people?
They had.
Who owns the property?
Mr. Rogers owns the property.
Individually?
Yes, sir. And that's why we have in the first exhibit is our, the warranty deed.
And always has owned it individually? I mean,
Yes,
it sounded like that, but who else had an ownership stake in it, and how did they, that was a private
At one point,
arrangement?
when I say ownership stake, perhaps I misspoke. The person that was connected Sierra and all that was helping manage the property, so he was getting some money when they were doing reviews and that kind of thing, and they had sort of a bad breakup of that business arrangement.
And the Mr. Rogers, this is his permanent address?
Yes, sir.
Did you say that Miss Sierra and Miss Rosenbaum are the same person?
No, they are not the same person.
Okay.
No. We have alleged and believe that the same person is writing those letters through the advent of creative Adobe and things of that nature. Again, that is not something I can substantiate today, but it's something we believe to be the case.
Does the applicant reside at this house? Is it?
Yes, this is owner occupied.
Because a lot of the letters said that he lived in another state.
As far as my understanding is he lives at the property.
And is he present today?
No, sir.
Where is he?
I don't know where he is today, but I can call him if you need me to. Given the lack of capacity in here today, I thought it would be wise not to.
The what?
Given the restraints that we're under today, I thought it would be wise to have as few people as possible here, but if he needs to be here, I can.
Well, that may be something the rest of the board wants to talk about. I mean, one of the things that, to me, and again, I'll let you continue to talk about, some of the opposition, and is it really one voice or is it five voices? But the letters specifically say one of them is the next door neighbor, and I don't know, you can address that relationship, but saying that the homeowner hasn't been basically a good steward of his Airbnb, and it sounds like, well, I'll ask another question in a second, but, in terms of, they're the guests of one, going over the roof to, I guess they have rooftop decks and, taking stuff and going back and forth and that kind of thing, and not managing the trash, and there's photos of trash and that kind of thing, and the fact that it raises the question of, is this person a responsible permit holder, may or may not play with the rest of the board in terms of the time frame to be able to reapply. And so for that reason, depending upon how the rest of the hearing goes, it may or may not be important to actually heard from the person, from him, the homeowner, to say, well, how did you manage your property? But Mr. McBroom had mentioned too that I guess there were at least 2 occasions where the homeowner was cited for advertising more than 10 people, that the house could accommodate more than 10 people. And it sounds to me like if you're advertising for 10 folks, that he's not staying there during those rental periods. Is that correct?
I haven't asked my client that specifically, but to address your point, that's not a requirement of him to stay there while that's been proposed, and I think maybe even passed in new legislation or new council matters. He doesn't have to stay there right now, and it's my understanding, and I could be wrong, that to address your point that I think you're getting to about what the new requirement would be, I think what would apply in this case would be and we've attached it as an exhibit, but what would apply is the prior legislation, because there hasn't been a 30-month gap in rental or usage as a short-term rental. So consistent with the state law, you would look back at what the old law was at the time, and at that time that was not part of the requirement for him to do that. And irrespective of whether he was staying there or not, I think it speaks to his ability to be a responsible owner, because anytime there was a notice of a violation, he took the steps to make it right and to correct those.
Well, it sounded like he did it twice, though. It's like, I get it if they were separate things, but to say, well, hey, stop advertising 14 folks in your Airbnb. Okay, well, 6 months later, hey, stop advertising 14 folks in your Airbnb. Okay, that's not. I don't think that's. And that doesn't seem to repeat. The first time, fool you once, fine. Second time, sorry.
I understand the quote.
Your point went away on that one. I'm sorry, Mr. McBroom, did you have a clarification for me?
Yes, as a point of clarification, the second one falls under the excess occupancy, but it is in fact a simultaneous rental clause of that excess occupancy. So it's slightly different. It wasn't necessarily that he was renting to more occupants than he was permitted. It was that he was renting on separate contracts to separate parties simultaneously.
Okay.
And
thank you.
And that was the point. Thank you, Mr. McBroom, for clarifying that. And that was the point I was going to make. And also, just as someone who has dealt with a lot of these, I can assure you that the general owners, there's a lot of confusion on what is and what isn't the law at the time and what's going on. So I try to help each one of my clients to stay up on that, to tell them this is exactly what you can and cannot do. And I think it's a constant source of confusion, and that's why these notice letters go out a lot, and y'all may never hear about those, because it's constantly something that they're tweaking and fixing it whenever they're made aware of it.
Okay. Any other questions at this point? Okay, I'm sorry. Continue.
I didn't have anything else other than if there are any further questions from the board. But as far as the letters that went in there, I cannot stress to you how the fact that, we have filed suit in circuit court based on these letters and the allegations that are in them, because we don't believe them to be factually correct. And we believe that they're tortiously attempting to interfere with contracts and our ability to entertain and or get this application. And we have filed suit because of that. So, and quite frankly, if opposition had been here, I think we were ready to serve them with that if we needed to. So we have had some difficulty getting them served lately, because the people that we believe have said those letters don't actually live at those addresses. So that's our belief. But again, that's hearsay and not part of the thing. That's just what we believe to be the truth.
So to understand that the letters in opposition, the addresses.
The addresses are correct, but we don't believe they actually live there.
Those aren't the people that are at that address.
We believe they're the owners.
What your allegation is, or your averment. I had to use that fancy word for you.
Yeah, we believe that the letters that have come in opposition are from people that may own the property but don't actually reside at the property.
Okay.
because we, again, believe it's an attempt to inhibit our ability to get the permit based on past bad blood.
Any other questions at this point? Anything else to add?
Not unless there's any questions, and I'm happy to address anything else that the board may want to ask about.
Anything? All right, then.
I guess I should disclose that Grover and I have been litigating on various matters for a number of times, so I'm quite familiar with him. It's a little more unusual because we have had contentious litigation. I know him to be very, very forthright in what he says and his allegations. So, and it also looks like we've got. So I do want to make that particular statement.
Okay. Any other questions? Then we will close the public hearing. I'm sorry, there's opposition. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that we had opposition present. Okay, there is opposition present? Well, ma'am, I'm sorry, we'll treat you as if you're opposed to it, and you can come to you have to come to the mic if you're gonna ask anything or say anything. And you need to come and have a seat, state your name and address. You just need to press the button to turn the red light on, and then state your name and address and what brought you here today. There's a button at the bottom. Jessica's coming to help you. There you go.
Good afternoon. My name is McCule Parker. I reside at 914 24th Avenue North. And I'm just an area resident. I was not aware of this situation. Somebody made me aware of it late yesterday. And I was just curious to know what was going on in the neighborhood and who the owner was, because there has been a lot of activity that has gone on at different points where neighbors were really supposed to be notified, but were not. So,
Are you talking about this particular house?
Well, that was one of the questions. Is it zoned for residential only, or is it residential and commercial, or what is that building supposed to be, or that location? Since Meharry is not the owner, but it's in the area.
Yeah, Matthew Rogers owns this property and is appealing to actually, and it's been testified that it's his personal property and that he lives there, and he had a permit to rent his home as an Airbnb, as an owner-occupied Airbnb, and he rented that home after his permit expired, so he's here today just asked to allow to be able to apply for another permit to rent his home. Now, he still has to go through the application process if we grant that. And so that's why we're here.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, it may be that the party is interested in the 21st Avenue North case 251, that Meharry Medical College is developing that property. That was, of course, scheduled to be the next case on our agenda, but it was approved on the consent agenda earlier today. And so it may be that was the case that she was most interested in.
Yes, ma'am. If you were here for the Meharry project, that I believe is a dorm residential building that Meharry's building, and that actually got approved on the consent agenda. And they had just asked for a slight sky plane variance and a slight setback variance, very, very minor to what codes would allow. And that was approved on the consent agenda.
Okay. Now, the only other question, I hear you when you say it got approved. What is the policy that when a development like this is going on, that the area residents are to be notified before it starts? What is the normal policy?
Yeah, you know, ma'am, if you would, since what we're going to do, Jessica, one of the folks from the codes office can help you and answer those questions for you. Because it's
Okay.
kind of outside of this hearing.
Okay.
But they'll be happy to let you know. I know that at least for this hearing, notification was supposed to have gone to everybody that lives within, I think, 1,000 feet. How far out do they go now? 600, 1,000 feet? 1,000 feet? So if you lived within 1,000 feet, then Meharry would have sent you a letter, or a letter to your address if you're the homeowner. Now, if you're not the homeowner, it would go to the person who owns the home. And so sometimes we have people who live in a home and they didn't get the letter because they didn't own the home. And I don't know, not trying to ascertain anybody's situation, but if you didn't get a letter, that's probably why, or you were outside of the 1,000 feet. And so they got a letter saying, hey, we're going to be here if you want to come and talk about it. Now, in terms of what happens before construction happens, Jessica, they can tell you just what's required of people and what the rights are of people that live around the neighborhood, just to make sure that they operate correctly and, with the noise constraints and that type of thing, so that they get to build their building, but with as minimal disruption as, as the city council is and the law allows, Yeah, they pass those rules as part of the code, and they have to follow the code. So we're not responsible for making those rules, but that's how that happens. But if you have any questions at all afterwards, feel free to ask the staff here, and they'll tell you exactly what they can about what you need to know.
Okay. All right.
All right, thank you. Thanks for coming in, and sorry that we didn't make that connection that your case was approved much earlier in the meeting.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Collins, now that that is cleared up. And there was no other opposition to this case, correct? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, and Ms. Collins, not to belabor the point, but your circuit court case, what exactly, how broad is it, and how much of what we're here today on is encompassed by it?
I think what we're here on today is encompassed in that only by the letters that were filed with the BZA. I think that to be a violation of an agreement that had been between the parties. So just to explain it to it, there is another owner of one of these properties in the same row. And that person has a mother and an aunt, or I don't know the entire table of consanguinity as it relates to this, but there's a lot of familiar relationship. That person operates Airbnbs, doesn't want any other Airbnbs in his little area. And so he's doing whatever he can to try to keep those from ever being allowed to operate.
Are there more than just two houses in the row? I mean,
Yeah,
the photo.
my understanding is there's 9 of them.
Okay, so somewhere along the line, there is a non-disclosure, and you're seeking to... There was a dispute. They resolved it with a mutual release and all that. And part of that mutual release was non-disparagement, non-disclosure. And we believe these letters to be in violation. Okay, and so in essence, you're attempting to strike the opposition letters that we have in our package today, basically.
Not just that, there was as it relates to that case,
yes,
there's a punitive penalty for any of that violation. But as it relates to here, yes, I would suggest to the board that there should be whatever weight you deem appropriate, but please, from our point of view, we view them as highly suspect as far as the opposition letters that have come through.
Well, now, one of them, this Elizabeth Sierra, testified that she owns the building right next, that they touch.
We don't believe she lives there.
Well, but I don't know that she, she's saying your client doesn't live in his place, and you're saying that now that she doesn't live in hers, and frankly, I don't know that either of that's before us. Now that Mr. McBroom may want to perk up and hear that when they come back and apply, and make sure people actually live where they stay.
Well, that's a constant source of Metro Environmental Court, so.
But I don't know that that's here, but that is, it is, exactly. I mean, it says that I own the property that is adjacent to the applicant, but it also lists an address of her as 1118 11th Avenue North, and I don't know where that is in relationship to 1053 Scoville, but that's the address on her letter. And based on your testimony, we don't even know if it's her. But,
Well, and let me be clear when I say testimony. I want you to know that these are our allegations, and I can't speak to.
Based on what you said publicly today, however form that is, it came from your table and from you. But again, I understand y'all know I'm not the lawyer, so y'all can argue over those terms.
I didn't have anything.
I was just hoping somebody else would talk and get me off the hook from.
I mean, I can do that. I think that unless Mr. Collins has something else he wanted to give us, I think we have enough information to discuss.
Anything else?
I just want to bear down on the point that if there were any violations previously, we took care of those. The bottom line is he failed to renew. It was something that he just failed to do. As soon as he was made aware of it and he tried to do that, the reason for the injunction was the reportedly documented stays after the period. When he was made aware of that and wasn't able to, then that's when he canceled. He went ahead and took the affirmative step to go ahead and cancel anything was outstanding. I think there's a general consensus, at least, and maybe this is wrong or right, probably wrong if anything, but I think generally the people that have these permits think that it's just something that's a course of conduct. You just go ahead and renew and pay the $50 fee. It's not as though you're going to actually lose it. I don't think that's obviously the correct approach or thought, but I think it's something that the board may need to understand, that they think it's just a merely administrative thing where you just turn in the $50 and there's no issue, go ahead and continue as normal. So I think that was the source of why there would be that one-year injunction, and because of that, we're just asking for some relief so that he can go ahead and reapply. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We will close the public hearing. And thoughts other than thanking the Metro Council for creating a separate board to hear these after the first of the year.
I second that.
They've been sworn in.
Yeah, no, exactly. Make one of our last one of these a jumbled muddy mess, maybe.
Okay, well, putting everything that was said to the side and just looking at the sequence of events here for the operating after the permit expired, that's all we're looking at. And the permit expired in June 1st. There was an attempt to renew on July 20th, which is quite a bit after the period that the permit expired. Then there was actually 3 documented stays in August, which was after the appellant knew that that the permit needed to be renewed. So I look at the 3 documented stays in August as a problem. And so I would not be that willing to grant relief, as we do sometimes when people do forget to renew their permit, and in many of those instances they will cancel their reservations. So I would look at a harsher penalty, maybe more in the lines of a 6 to 8 months.
I'm inclined to agree with Ms. Carpenet. I think that makes sense. It seems logical, and it's based not on the not on the opposition or anything else. It's just based off of the facts, and I think that that's reasonable. And so if you made that a motion, I would support it.
Well, and, just the only thing about, I like things that are reasonably clear and straightforward, and there's just a lot of unknowns to me here, and I'm sad that, for his sake, that the property owner wasn't present. Certainly acceptable to have a representative speak on your behalf, but when the letters are, basically, talking about your behavior or his behavior, and it's not really refuted, on the specifics. Some of them may be applicable, some may not be applicable to this. I mean, that's concerning, and, and there's no shortage of issues outside of the expiration or the operating on an expired permit for the code staff who oversee Airbnbs to look at on this one, including, maybe this applicant, the next door neighbor. But we hear an awful lot of these, and you can count on, for however many years we've been hearing these things, at least one hand, maybe two, the cases that are this muddy. And usually when there's just a lot of mud and smoke, there's something there.
Well, I think there's a motion. I will say, I don't think we've heard the last of this, or at least some of the courthouse hasn't heard the last of this one. This might actually be an annuity case for some lawyers. But that being the case, I've seen other folks come to us, and we've been a little bit more lenient. I think 8 months is way too long, personally, but that's, and I'm not real sure what the motion is. Is it 6 or is it 8?
It was just discussion.
Oh, okay. I'm just trying to get a feel. I'm zeroing in a little bit, trying to, because we had talked about it all day long, and I just assume not.
Well,
not that I don't enjoy your companies.
I believe it's less harsh than the year.
Well,
so.
I'm sorry.
And I mean, there was an effort to renew the permit, but then there was clearly stays after that action was taken. So it was known that they were violating. So to me, that's maybe less than 12 months because there was an effort to renew, and there had been a permit, but I still think it needs to be harsher. I was going to say 8 months from the day of the appeal, which was September 4th. And that's my motion, so I'm going to make that motion, and maybe I'll get a second.
A second.
And I'll say the zoning administrator did not err. I forgot that part of the motion.
So that would be September 4th, April 4th. The motion.
I thought I seconded it.
Yeah, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, none. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Raise your hand. Opposed? That motion passes 4-2. Next case.
The next case is case 2020-240, located at 611 Neal Avenue. It's an item A appeal challenging the zoning administrator's denial of a short-term rental permit. The appellant operated after the issued permit expired within the RS5 district. Is there anyone here in opposition to this case? Seeing none. Councilmember, would you like to step up to the podium and make a comment at this time? Yes, yes. Mr. McBroom will step forward and make his presentation on this case.
Again, we have an expired permit advertising and operating after the expiration. On 11/7/2017, the STRP permit application was filed. On December the 8th of 2017, a type 1 owner-occupied STRP permit was issued. On 11/26 of 2018, the permit was renewed. On 10/16 of 2019, notice of violation was sent by Inspector John Phelps. 2 website platform advertisements, one of which failed to display the permit number and the other advertised excess bedrooms. The advertisements were corrected within the remedial time period, and the case was closed. On December the 8th of 2019, the permit expired. 2 documented stays after the permit expired in February and March of 2020. On 7/20 of 2020, notice of violation was sent by Campbell Padgett for advertising and operating a short-term rental property with an expired permit. At the time of notice, 1 advertisement was posted. On 8/6/2020, the website advertisement was removed. On 8/12/2020, the BZA appeal was filed. There were no documented stays after the receipt of the notice for permit expiration. There was 1 documented complaint received via the STRP hotline concerning advertisement of excess bedrooms.
But that was you said that complaint, the excess bedroom complaint was remedied, right, within the time frame?
Yes.
So that's what triggered, is that hotline complaint what triggered you guys?
That triggered the first notice of violation, yes.
And then they corrected it, and they haven't had anything since?
Just the permit expiration and then the notice that was sent regarding that.
Okay, and no stays during the period after the notice?
There were no documented stays after the receipt of the notice of violation for permit expiration.
Okay. Sir, if you could press the button, there you go, and just state your name and address and tell us why you're here.
Robert Norris, 611 Neal Avenue. I did not renew my permit on time, and when I got the letter, I immediately canceled. I think I had 3 upcoming stays in August and September, and I canceled those. And then whenever I learned that I could appeal this, I did, and that's why I'm here now. I haven't had anyone in the house since March, so it's been a long time since it's been rented to anyone. And I'm here to ask for some relief to, I guess, March I would be able to apply again, but I just would like to get it up so that I can start booking some spring rentals.
Okay. And you said you canceled all the reservations. Once you got your notice, you canceled all the reservations. I think you just testified that you had 3, but you canceled all the reservations that you had.
Yes, sir.
And haven't rented it since.
Correct.
Any questions more questions for the applicant? Did you have anything else to add?
No.
Okay, and I think the council member did you want to speak on?
Thank you all again. The only, this is Councilmember Sean Parker. The only thing that gives me pause about this case is one of the neighbors who received notice of this hearing lives behind this property on the adjacent street. And I don't know if she submitted a letter, but she's under the impression that there is no primary resident of this home. So I was hoping that the applicant could speak to that, if this is their primary residence, and if applying for a owner-occupied permit would be appropriate here.
Okay, we can ask the applicant, and one of the things that a lot of times, sir, if you come back and just answer that question, which is this your primary residence, and would you be applying for an owner-occupied permit?
Yes, this is absolutely my primary residence. I live and work in Nashville. I'm not sure why anybody would think that. I've been in my house since March. I think I've been out of Nashville for maybe 10 days since. So I live on site there. This is my primary residence.
And this is where you stay when you're in Nashville?
Yes, I don't rent any other place. This is my only residence.
Okay. And then one of and again, I'm not saying, well, I'm sorry, are there any other questions for the applicant at this point? Okay, thank you. And did you have anything else to add?
Not at this time.
Okay. And you can cut off your mic now if you don't mind. And one of the things on some of these cases too is that if we allow someone to apply for a permit, then they still have to prove, all of the residency requirements that are required for the specific piece of property to the satisfaction of codes based on the requirements that the council has outlined in their rules. So all we're doing is allowing them to apply, and we're certainly not making any judgment on residency. So just wanted to make sure that we clarified that. So
I was just going to say that if the year expires in March, it's December. I feel like I understand wanting to get it up and running prior to the spring, but there's also letters of opposition. Yeah. So I think, from my perspective, I just think splitting it somewhere in the middle, like not next week, but maybe end of January, beginning of February, so that he has time to get it up before spring, but it's not the full year. That's just my thought, but that's all I got.
Well, the only thing about, the letters of opposition, unlike the last case where the letters were very specific to that property, this person, didn't manage his property. He didn't take out the trash. He allowed his tenants to be loud. He allowed his tenants to take things from my roof. They were very specific. And the only two, we have one that says, I don't want short-term rentals. They create noise. That's a generic thing which has nothing to do with this person's behavior or his rights. And then the other one is, I think that, and again, I'm not disparaging this person's opinion, but it's like, I don't think you should approve anything sooner than a year because you should follow the rules. And like I said, I respect that opinion, but it's nothing to the behavior of this applicant. And to me, I think and again, it's however everybody else feels, but to me, I think it's, you're eligible to apply on Monday because you haven't rented since March. You took everything down like you were supposed to. You removed the, I think there was one incident that was corrected, but that was, while you still had a valid permit. And so, to me, this is one of those cases where the applicant, the opposition is very generic. Not one of them mentions this person's home or how he behaved, and they just didn't do anything but failed to renew. But like I said, others may, like I said, have a different view on it.
I would support that if you made it a motion, because to me that'd be consistent with how we've treated very similarly situated people. So.
Well, and like I said, to me, the occupancy issue is we've heard the testimony, the questioning, but with the testimony here, and that I think will be settled in the application process, and appropriately, thankfully, it's, if it's questioned at some point down the road, they can appeal that and bring it to us, but that's not before us today. So was there any other discussion on that? Anybody want to try a motion? I'll try a motion that the applicant, that zoning administrator didn't err, and based on this applicant's behavior after notification, the applicant would be eligible to apply for a permit on Monday. Second. All right, on that motion has a second. Is there a discussion on that? Okay, all in favor of that, raise your hand and say aye. Those opposed? That motion passes 4-2. Any other business? Then we will adjourn this meeting.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.